Twin Hearts.
Yeah.
So do you remember, that might be a little bit too much. Let me see what's a comfortable, what year this basically became a ski resort, or did it start off as a ski club or a ski resort?
No, this is how it happened. Doug Frid was a member of Cedar Springs Ski Club, probably a regular fixture up there. Right, his dad had the big company in Hamilton. They had lots of money. And Doug was this cantankerous guy, larger than life, but they just gave him lots of money to do what he wanted. So he fell out somehow with the people at Cedar Springs. He may already have known that the other side of Kate's Peak was kind of a nice ski hill. So I'm going to get my daddy to build me a ski resort on that hill, thinking that he would get the top of Kate's Peak, not the bottom. Turns out he didn't get the whole thing. He got about 2/3 of it. The bottom.
Let me stop you there so we can show everybody on the topographical map. So this
see the lift line right there. Look at that straight line cleared of trees.
Yeah, coming up here.
Yeah, something like that. Not all the way to the top though.
Yeah. So let me go over to the topographical map.
That would help.
And this kind of explains what you were.
Oh yeah, that has the cleared area that they did a lot of bulldozing on that. I remember seeing a bulldozer on that with 1960, I suppose, or 61.
Yeah, so this 100 acres here is what Doug owned, and they turned into Twin Hearts.
Yep.
And like
later Aspen.
Yes. And like you're saying, originally he wanted to be able to run a ski lift all the way up here to Kate's Peak.
Well, yeah, but he learned pretty soon on that they weren't going to let him do that. So he built a rope tow. Again, I'm pretty sure it was built by Greening Metal Products in Orangeville, because these were the chunkiest substantial rope tows I have ever seen. 2 of them Doug had. And they were really fine machines. I don't know the details of them, but I certainly have seen them. So he had 2 rope tows, and then we turned up with our pommel lift, and Doug says, "Hey, Dad, they got a pommel lift. I want something else, something bigger, faster, you know." So he got a T-bar, made at Greening Metal Products, probably partially designed by good old Lloyd Edwards, who was working there at the time.
Yeah, but for everybody to understand what you're saying, so originally this is the 100 acres that Twin Hearts was built on.
So right over, including the properties west of that, because he chopped up. Those were he made those when he sold Twin Hearts. He carved off those 3 pieces. He built a house on one of them, and the others got sold. I think maybe one corner may have been sold to Cedar Highlands, although I don't know that.
Okay. But in Doug's mind, the ideal situation for him was to run a lift all the way up here, and then it's easy for people to see now. You can see the property lines.
Yeah.
So Doug didn't own this land, so he was never able to run a ski lift up here. And the question I had for you, if he was able to run a lift all the way up here, would that have been like the best vertical drop and the longest run in the valley at that time?
Well, the top map would tell you would be close to what we had, which, you know, was technically 325 vertical, I think. But I mean, a fairly shorter hill. Ours was kind of pokey, not that steep, you know, in spots it was. But his had the Kate's Peak, which would have been a really fine ski hill. I mean, I walked over it a bit. Some of it was extremely steep, like our peak, you know, the peak where we had the racing hill.
Yep.
Like the north side of Kate's Peak was bloody steep, most of it. But, you know, you can build ski trails and go around corners and level things out. All you need is a few bulldozers, and Doug had access to them. So it would have been, I would think, quite crushing to Doug that he did not get that dream.
Yeah, that would have been a nice ski resort. So right here for everybody, this is where Kate's Peak would be.
Yep. And so he wanted to get right up there.
Yep. But unfortunately, here's his property line. He was never able to do it. So I'm assuming that what we were looking at earlier, this was essentially the top of the ski hill right here.
Yeah, well, you can see how it parallels the boundary of the property. That field, that's where the T-bar ended, right probably on the boundary, as close as they could get.
Yep.
Get the most vertical drop, etc.
So what do you remember what year they opened?
No, because I wasn't around the year they opened, so I don't know that for sure. It would have been, well, before, well, the January 1960 was the date where, Valley Fish got conceived of, but it would have been there for a few years, but I don't know how many before that. Probably no more than 10.
Okay.
No, for sure though.
When you were there in 1960, so they just had rope tows then?
Yeah, but the rope tows went the same place the T-bar did, right as far as they could get up the hill.
And
Really long rope tow. It might even been 2 stages. I've skied on it, and another one over near the chalet, which was shorter and not as high, but a nice hill.
where would
Right
that?
there where your cursor is. Yeah, the area was okay. I can see the chalet way up high in your picture there. Yeah,
Was it?
the big white spot would be, I don't know what that is, right in the below that towards the T-bar. That I don't know what that is, but
Yeah, I'm not sure looking at
well, it
this.
could be the bottom. No, all right. So here we go. This is interesting. That white thing is the bottom of the T-bar, the green T-bar, which was a marble. It was huge. And over to the left is the little building that probably housed the bottom of the rope tow. So the rope tow and the T-bar were parallel. So I can imagine at one point they had a T-bar and a rope tow, but I was consumed with Valley Sis at that point. I mean, I did go over there now and then, but I mean, my memory is not perfect. So that's a guess. And then over near the chalet, there's a little couple of dots there I can see. Right, whoa, okay, go up towards the chalet a bit. And then to your right, there's 2 little circles with white or dots in the middle. I don't know what that is, but that could be the bottom of the other rope tow going up again, up the same direction, partway up Cape Peak. It was just more terrain for Doug to exploit. I suspect that rope tow was built somewhat later than the first one, although I wouldn't say that for sure. It might even have been his attempt to have a beginner's hill, the bottom was less steep. In any case, after the T-bar was built, about a third of the way up the T-bar, about there, you could get off the T-bar, and then you could turn left and you could go up the cable tow to the right towards the six line at right angles to the T-bar, way down near the bottom. No, I'm sorry, near the bottom of the T-bar. Go halfway, okay, starting there, if you were on the T-bar, a little over to my right, then you could get off and go straight in the same direction up to the top of the hill, which previously had been the top of this rope tow. What I'm saying is, Doug wanted more people to get to the top of that hill, which is a nice hill down towards the chalet. So you can get off the T-bar, turn left, go up this cable tow, the motor for which I have in my shop this moment. Anecdote. Okay, that was the first cable tow that I was aware of in the Hockley Valley.
So where was that transition at? If this is the,
Well, I don't know where you got off exactly. I just remember going up the cable tow, and it must be all treed now. Although, again, if you imagine the smaller rope tow going parallel to the T-bar, you're nowhere near it now, way over towards the road. Okay, remember the 2 little circles I mentioned?
these up here?
Yeah, right. So that's probably about, I think it's the bottom of the little rope, which went right parallel to the boundary of the property, straight towards Kate. Kate, okay, wow, stop there. A little farther. Okay, whoa, that's the top, I guess, of this little cable tow, which did not start at the very bottom of the hill. It started partway up the T-bar, I think. Again, my memory is 79 years old here. But he had this setup where you go partway up the hill, I think, on the T-bar, and then up this cable tow, and then down towards the chalet, because you could show off the people in the chalet drinking their coffee and watching the kids go down this hill. You could not if you were watching people on the T-bar. It was like our lift. It was kind of not easy to see from the chalet. So this was kind of like the Coxet T-bar we had at our place. It was a place to show the people driving into the parking lot, this is actually a ski resort and there are skiers up there. It was kind of smoke and mirrors to some extent.
Okay. So as the, well, I think this is a good time to, we'll talk about the story just in case somebody hasn't heard us talk about it before, but why don't you tell us about the time that my father, your father, and you came up here and skied and then came up with the idea for
Well, okay. I mean, that was January 1960. I know that for sure. We may have skied there one more time or more that winter, maybe even the winter before. Because one, we were just guys that wanted to go skiing. And I know we had skied at Cedar Springs before Valley Swift was ever thought of. And we also probably skied at Twin Hearth because it was just around the corner. And we skied at Hockley Valley Ski Club. So that day in January, it was a nice day. Parking lot was jammed with people. Everybody was having a good time. And Harold and I and Dad were skiing there. And my recollection is on our way home to Brantford, Harold said something almost casually to Lloyd. Again, they were looking for a job for Lloyd because Harold's business was folding. So Harold said, well, I wonder whether there's any money in this ski resort business. Because again, we had just left the parking lot and they had got their little metal calculator out saying, well, there's a lot of cars here. There's a certain amount of money. Maybe it's a business. Let's look for some land. A week later, we had identified this piece of land that was for sale down the road. Just a week after that day. That was the instigation of Valley Swift. And Dad and I parked at the bottom of the hill, on the road intersection and walked up to the top of the hill and said, wow, this is neat.
And then how much later till the land was purchased?
Oh, just a few months.
Yeah, so it happened pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, no kidding. Dad went home. I mean, he and Harold were on the same page here. Dad called this real estate company in Orangeville, Paul Star Real Estate, and said, he got any land for sale? He said, well, how about this? Go and take a look at it. This was the top of the hill. So we did. Only a week after that January light bulb went off.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So back then you had Twin Hearth / Aspen. You could ski here at Cedar Highlands.
Yeah, only part of that map there. That map shows a whole lot of more recent trails.
Right. And then further on down the road here, the Hockley Valley.
Yep.
Or I guess it's called the
Hockley Valley Ski Club. They're all called ski clubs at that time.
Yeah. Which is right here. And you can see, obviously this was taken in the spring because there's still snow left.
Yeah, well,
on the
photograph
on the hill there. So that's pretty that's a great story how you guys would ski up here in the area. And so you were coming from Brantford, correct?
80 miles away.
Yep. Okay.
But skiing was burgeoning at the time. Everybody was building ski resorts.
Was this area essentially the closest place for you guys to go skiing from Brantford?
Yes, although we could ski in Kitchener at a place called Chicopee. I think it's still there. It's just on the outskirts. Actually, it's probably part of Kitchener now. But I remember driving there from Brantford with my buddies Bob and Dave Covey with our skis, which this would have been around 1960 because we had skis, skiing at Chicopee on rope toes. I have a good vision of that in my mind. So that was a lot closer to Brantford, and probably we went there maybe even at night. Well, I don't think they had lights at that time, but I do remember skiing at Chicopee. That wasn't nearly the hill that these were. These were really bigger hills.
Okay.
So Dad and Harold and I'll never know for sure if we skied at Twin Hearth before that fateful day in January. We may have. I'm very sure we would have skied at Cedar Springs before the day at Twin Hearth.
Okay.
Maybe even just a few weeks before. I'm not sure.
Well, I'm assuming they were all, I guess, competing competing for skiers, but I'm assuming at that time that they must have had enough to go around where they all did
Well,
okay.
no, occasionally they had enough to go around.
Okay.
Remember, the first year we had Valley Shus for 3 years, hardly any snow. First 3 years of ARPA. Now, Doug Frid would have been 2 years into it by then. You know, he had the money behind him to write it out, but Cedar Springs probably just nobody skied for, well, I mean, some hills had snow on them, and that's why we were hauling snow in these toboggans at Valley Shus, because there was precious little snow. And, you know, we planted trees to keep it on the top of our hill, because it would just blow off as soon as it landed.
Right.